Imagine being trapped in the wilderness with no hope of rescue until two German shepherds appear from the shadows. This isn't fiction. It actually happened. What's going on, everyone? Today we're diving into an incredible rescue story that proves why German shepherds are called hero dogs. A forest ranger, left for dead and chained to a tree in the middle of nowhere, owes his life to two canine German shepherds who did something so remarkable it's hard to believe. By the end of this video, you'll understand why these dogs are considered elite search and rescue animals, and why this particular rescue has touched the hearts of millions. Let me take you back to a cold October morning in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest. Ranger Mike Holloway had set out on what should have been a routine patrol of his sector in the Mount Baker-Snoqualmie National Forest. At 43 years old, Mike was a veteran forest ranger with over 15 years of experience. He knew these woods like the back of his hand, every trail, every stream, every landmark. This wasn't someone who would easily get lost or make amateur mistakes. But experience doesn't matter when you're caught off guard. While checking reports of illegal logging activity in a remote section of the forest, Mike encountered something unexpected: fresh tire tracks leading off the main service road. Following protocol, he radioed in his position and his intention to investigate, then headed down the unmarked path. What Mike didn't know was that he had stumbled upon an illegal operation, not just logging, but a drug manufacturing site hidden deep in the forest. And the people running it had spotted him before he spotted them. The details of what happened next come from Mike's own testimony. He remembers a sharp pain in his leg, likely from a tranquilizer dart, and then waking up in a foggy state, his hands and feet bound with thick chains to a massive Douglas fir tree. His radio, phone, and gear were gone. His attackers had taken everything, even the emergency kit he kept in his vest pocket. "They told me no one would find me," Mike later recounted. "They said they were relocating their operation, and I would be left there until nature took its course." The criminals had chosen a spot nearly 8 miles from any marked trail, in a dense section of forest that even experienced hikers rarely ventured into. They left Mike with no food, no water, and no way to free himself from the heavy-duty chains that bit into his wrists and ankles. For 2 days and nights, Mike endured freezing temperatures, dehydration, and the growing realization that his chances of rescue were slim. He tried shouting for help until his voice gave out. He attempted to work his way free from the chains, only managing to rub his skin raw and bloody. By the 3rd day, hypothermia was setting in. Mike drifted in and out of consciousness, his body temperature dropping dangerously low despite the mental tricks he used to keep himself alert. As a forest ranger, he knew exactly what was happening to him. His organs were beginning to shut down. Without water, the human body can only last about 3 days. Mike was approaching that deadline. "I started hallucinating," he later told reporters. "I thought I saw my late father standing among the trees. I saw my childhood dog. I knew then that I was dying." Meanwhile, back at Ranger headquarters, the alarm had been raised when Mike failed to check in after his patrol. Search and rescue operations had begun, but the search area was massive, over 140,000 acres of dense forest terrain. Teams had been focusing on Mike's last known coordinates, but with no further communication and no clear indication of which direction he had gone, they were essentially looking for a needle in a haystack. This is where our four-legged heroes enter the story. Timber and Scout were two German shepherds from the regional K9 search and rescue unit. Timber, a 5-year-old male with a distinctive black and tan coat, was the senior dog with over 30 successful finds to his credit. Scout, his 3-year-old partner, was newer to the team, but had already shown exceptional tracking abilities during training. Their handler, Sarah Martinez, had worked with the pair for years. "German shepherds are uniquely suited for wilderness search and rescue," Sarah explains. "They have an incredible sense of smell, up to 100,000 times more sensitive than humans. They can track a scent that's days old, even in challenging conditions. Plus, they have the stamina and intelligence to work in rough terrain for hours." What makes this story particularly remarkable is that Timber and Scout weren't initially assigned to Mike's case. They had just completed a different training exercise in a neighboring county when they were called in as additional resources on the 3rd day of the search. By this point, hope was fading. The search teams had already covered the most likely areas without finding any trace of Mike. Sarah and her K9 partners were given a section of forest to search that had already been checked by other teams, a standard procedure to ensure no areas are missed. They were working with a scent article from Mike's locker, an unwashed t-shirt sealed in a plastic bag to preserve his scent. Usually, we work with a relatively fresh trail, Sarah later explained. But in this case, we didn't know exactly where Mike had gone after his last radio check-in. We were basically asking the dogs to find a 3-day-old needle in a 140,000-acre haystack. The odds seemed impossible, but something extraordinary happened next. About 2 hours into their search pattern, Timber suddenly lifted his head and changed direction, pulling hard on his tracking harness. This behavior, what handlers call an air scent hit, indicated he had caught a trace of something on the wind. Scout, working a parallel track about 50 feet away, showed the same reaction moments later. When both dogs alert independently like that, you pay attention, Sarah said. They were pulling in the same direction, away from our assigned search grid, and toward a section of the forest that was supposed to have been checked the day before. Sarah had a choice to make: stick to the assigned search pattern or trust her dog's instincts. She chose to trust the dogs, radioing her team leader to report the change in direction. What followed was a grueling 4-hour trek through some of the most challenging terrain in the forest. The dogs led Sarah up steep inclines, through dense underbrush, and across 2 small streams. They were heading deeper into the wilderness, far from any marked trails. There were moments when I doubted, Sarah admitted. We were well outside our search zone, moving into an area that supposedly had already been cleared, but the dogs were so certain. They had that intensity they only show when they're onto something real. The most remarkable part: the dogs weren't following a ground trail. There wasn't one to follow after 3 days of rain and wind. Instead, they were tracking microscopic scent particles carried on air currents, what SAR experts call scent cones. They were essentially following invisible highways of scent that had drifted through the forest canopy. As they pushed further into the wilderness, Sarah noticed both dogs becoming increasingly excited, the telltale sign that they were getting closer to their target. Their pace quickened, tails raised high, bodies tense with purpose. Then, around 4:30 p.m. on that third day, in a small clearing surrounded by towering Douglas firs, Timber let out the distinctive bark that indicated a find. Scout joined in seconds later. Sarah rushed forward to discover Mike Holloway, barely conscious, chained to a massive tree. "I thought I was hallucinating again," Mike later recalled. "I heard the dogs barking first, and I was sure it was just another dream before dying. Then I saw this woman rushing toward me, and these 2 beautiful German shepherds circling the tree, barking like crazy. I started crying because I knew then it was real, I was going to live." Mike was in critical condition. He was severely dehydrated, hypothermic, and had lost feeling in his extremities where the chains had cut off circulation. The skin around his wrists and ankles was badly damaged from his attempts to free himself. Here's where the story takes another extraordinary turn. Sarah couldn't free Mike from the heavy chains. She didn't have the necessary tools. She needed to call for backup, but they were in a dead zone with no radio or cell service. She couldn't leave Mike alone in his condition, but she needed to get help. This is when Timber and Scout did something that went beyond their training. Sarah gave Scout the command to go home, a directional instruction to return to their entry point where other team members were waiting. She attached a bright orange note to his vest, explaining the situation and their location. Scout took off through the forest, retracing their path with remarkable accuracy. Timber stayed behind with Sarah, who was now working to keep Mike warm and hydrated with her emergency supplies. "What Scout did next was beyond our wildest expectations," Sarah said. "We estimated it would take him at least 2 hours to make it back to the command post. He did it in 45 minutes. Scout not only found his way back, but led the rescue team straight to Mike's location without hesitation, navigating the complex route with perfect recall. The specialized rescue team arrived with bolt cutters and medical equipment, freed Mike from his chains, and began emergency treatment for hypothermia and dehydration. Mike Holloway was evacuated by helicopter to Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, where doctors later said he had been within hours of death. The chains had caused severe tissue damage, and he had developed the early stages of kidney failure from dehydration. But thanks to the timely rescue and medical intervention, he made a full recovery. The investigation into the illegal operation that Mike had stumbled upon is still ongoing, but based on evidence found at the scene, authorities have linked it to a regional drug trafficking network. Mike's discovery may have inadvertently led to the breakup of a major criminal enterprise operating on public lands. But the real heroes of this story are undoubtedly Timber and Scout. Their extraordinary tracking abilities, combined with their handlers' trust in their instincts, saved a life that by all conventional wisdom should have been lost. "Those dogs found me when no human could have," Mike said from his hospital bed. "They tracked me across miles of wilderness, through rain and wind that should have erased any trace of me. And when Scout ran back for help, that's not just training, that's something special." The science behind what Timber and Scout accomplished is fascinating. German Shepherds have approximately 225 million scent receptors in their noses, compared to a human's mere 5 million. This gives them the ability to detect scents at concentrations nearly 100,000 times lower than what humans can perceive. In ideal conditions, these dogs can detect human scent from up to a mile away. But what made this rescue particularly impressive was the conditions. Multiple rainstorms had drenched the forest during Mike's ordeal, and winds had been gusting up to 30 mph, conditions that would normally disperse and dilute human scent beyond detection. Dr. Lisa Jenkins, a veterinary scientist who specializes in working dog capabilities, explained, "What these dogs accomplish goes beyond what we typically expect even from elite search and rescue animals. They weren't following a ground trail, that would have been long gone. They were picking up fragmentary scent particles carried on complex air currents through dense forest, then mentally mapping the source location. It's like finding a single drop of water in an Olympic swimming pool." The mental mapping aspect is particularly extraordinary. Dogs don't just follow scents in a straight line, they create mental maps of how scents move through an environment, accounting for air currents, terrain features, and environmental conditions. In essence, they're solving complex three-dimensional puzzles in real time. When Scout returned to lead the rescue team back, Dr. Jenkins continues, he wasn't following scent anymore. He was using visual and spatial memory to recreate a complex journey through unmarked wilderness. That demonstrates a level of cognitive mapping that we're only beginning to understand in canines. Following this remarkable rescue, both Timber and Scout received the National Search and Rescue Hero Award, becoming only the fifth and sixth dogs in history to receive this honor. Their handler, Sarah Martinez, was recognized with a Medal of Valor from the Department of Agriculture, which oversees the U.S. Forest Service. But perhaps the most touching part of this story came 6 months after the rescue, when Mike Holloway returned to full duty as a forest ranger. His first official act was to establish the Timber and Scout Wilderness Protection Initiative, a program that trains more search and rescue dogs specifically for Forest Service operations and funds new equipment for K9 handlers. "I owe my life to those dogs," Mike said at the initiative's launch ceremony. "Every day I wake up is because of what they and Sarah did. The least I can do is make sure other people in trouble have the same chance I had." Today, Timber and Scout continue their work with the search and rescue team, having added 3 more successful finds to their record since saving Mike. Their remarkable abilities have led to a renewed interest in the capabilities of working dogs, with several research universities now studying how their tracking methods might be replicated or enhanced with technology. German Shepherds have long been valued for their intelligence, loyalty, and work ethic. Originally bred in Germany in the late 19th century as herding dogs, their versatility quickly became apparent. Today, they serve in military roles as police K9 officers, as service dogs for people with disabilities, and of course, as search and rescue specialists. The breed's combination of physical attributes makes them particularly well suited for wilderness rescue. Their double coat protects them in harsh weather conditions. Their athletic build allows them to traverse difficult terrain for hours without tiring. And their intelligence, ranked third among all dog breeds, gives them the problem-solving abilities needed for complex search operations. But beyond these physical and mental traits, stories like Mike's rescue highlight something less tangible but equally important: the profound bond between these dogs and the humans they serve. Both Timber and Scout work tirelessly, pushing beyond exhaustion to find a human they had never met. "There's something about German Shepherds, about working dogs in general, that goes beyond training," Sarah explains. "They seem to understand the importance of what they're doing. They have a drive not just to find, but to save." This innate desire to help seems embedded in their DNA. In controlled studies, German Shepherds consistently demonstrate what researchers call prosocial behavior, a willingness to assist others even when there's no direct benefit to themselves. This trait, combined with their physical and sensory capabilities, makes them invaluable partners in life-saving operations. For Mike Holloway, Timber and Scout aren't just dogs, they're guardian angels with 4 paws and wet noses. I keep their pictures on my desk, he says. Every morning when I start my shift, I look at them and remember that I'm living on borrowed time that those 2 amazing animals gave back to me. The forest that almost became Mike's final resting place now has a new marker, a simple plaque mounted on the very tree where he was found. It reads, "On this spot, on October 12, 2 German shepherds named Timber and Scout proved that heroes come in all forms. May their courage inspire all who walk these woods." Mike's story is just one of many that highlight the extraordinary capabilities of these remarkable animals. Around the world, working dogs save an estimated 150,000 human lives each year, finding lost hikers, locating disaster survivors, alerting to medical emergencies, and providing countless other services that no technology has yet been able to replicate. As we continue to develop more advanced search technologies, from thermal imaging drones to satellite tracking systems, the humble dog's nose remains our most effective tool for finding the lost and saving the desperate. Timber and Scout's incredible rescue of Mike Holloway stands as testament to this ancient partnership between humans and canines, a partnership built on trust, respect, and an unspoken understanding that transcends species. In Mike's words, "When I was chained to that tree, losing hope with each passing hour, I prayed for a miracle. My miracle came on 4 legs, with wagging tails and wet noses. I don't know if dogs can understand gratitude, but I hope somehow Timber and Scout know that every breath I take is thanks to them." Next time you see a German Shepherd or any working dog, remember Mike's story. Remember that behind those attentive eyes and keen nose lies a hero in waiting, ready to achieve the impossible when a human life hangs in the balance. If you've been moved by this incredible rescue story, make sure to hit subscribe and check out our next video on how canine search and rescue dogs are trained from puppyhood to become life-saving heroes.